This presentation is brought to you by the Alliance for Community and Justice Innovation and was created for the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Division of Housing.
I've been working with implementation science since 2011, when it was new to us here in Colorado. At that time, we didn't know what we didn't know. But over time, I've learned that implementation research is complicated science about a complicated subject. Organizations are complex, and organizational change is even more complex. But it doesn't have to be complicated to learn or to apply scientific implementation strategies in our day-to-day work. In this segment, I'm going to provide an overview of implementation science strategies. At ECJI, we've interpreted it into 4 basic components, which we call the 4 pillars of implementation acumen. What we want you to learn about first are the 3 levels of implementation. You might also see these as the 3 degrees of implementation. I'll also do a high-level overview of the 4 pillars and begin to identify some important practices for each of the pillars. You'll also learn about the importance of using an implementation team, as well as some tips on how to design your implementation team. These form the very basics of a good implementation science approach to your work. So let's think of the word implementation for a minute. We can see it as both a noun, but more importantly as a verb. It means the use of a specified set of research-informed activities designed to put into practice an activity or program of known dimensions in such a way that it's delivered with fidelity and sustainable over time. Programs and practices intended to improve outcomes for communities often start with an idea and a plan. But what is it that actually happens in that process between idea and execution? What determines whether a program will succeed or fail? And what are the critical factors that ensure we achieve what we expect with the programs and innovations we implement? We also like to think of implementation as the syringe, with the program or the evidence-based practice or the innovation as the serum. The serum is the active ingredient of change. If we intend to impact our results with an evidence-based serum, we have to also apply an evidence-based syringe in order to deliver the serum with the right dosage so that it can do its work. Just like the serum, without a syringe is ineffective. A program or innovation without implementation science is equally ineffective. Remember how we defined implementation as also a verb, not just a noun? Well, many times the process of implementation gets stuck fairly early. Most programs and innovations, in fact 80 to 90% of them, never get fully implemented or even out of the first level of implementation. These programs are unlikely to show long-term outcomes for participants because they were never fully implemented to begin with. Oftentimes, well-intentioned programs and people struggle with competing priorities, multiple funding streams, and grant requirements, or mandates and heavy workloads that can create an environment where we're speeding or jumping along to the next implementation before we even finish the first. For this and many other reasons, which you'll learn about throughout this course, the community and justice sectors have very low rates of implementation success. So I just talked about levels of implementation. Imagine for a moment that there are 3 levels of implementation: hoping it happens, helping it happen, and making it happen. Level 1 is hoping that it happens. You can also think of the hoping level as paper-level implementation of new policies and procedures. In this level, the proof the program exists is because we say it exists, and we have a policy or procedure, or maybe a nice-looking brochure that we can check off to show that it's being used. This may suffice for monitoring compliance or passing an audit. However, nothing substantially changes in the way people work or deliver services. When looking to make big systemic change or solve complex problems in the community, this approach fails. When we only hope that our implementation happens, we expect others to do the work rather than to change our own ways of approaching organizational excellence. We have to take the mindset that it's not someone else's job to make our organization great, and it's our job to have a role in that change. If that EBP is in your mission statement and on your website, but not deeply integrated into your organizational culture and among the day-to-day habits of staff that deliver the services, you might only be at the hoping or paper level stage of implementation. Helping it happen takes implementation one step further, providing classroom training and guidance to staff in the new ways to deliver the program. In this level, the activities related to the innovation are happening, events and outputs are being counted, and even new language related to the innovation is adopted. However, while activities may change, the quality of them is neglected and outcomes do not change. In this level, organizations may create new forms, develop new processes, and even write new mission statements to strengthen classroom training. You might even rely on a training the trainers approach at this helping stage so that you can expand and sustain your capacity to change. However, here, as well as in the first level, the assumption is that the program's success is the sole responsibility of the people delivering the service, and maybe that of the trainers as well. Still at this stage, other people are expected to change on their own, rather than expecting organizational culture and leadership to create an environment supportive of success. While the helping stage is better than the hoping stage, it's still not considered scientific implementation. In the final level, making it happen means that the new practices are so integrated into an organization that it just becomes what we do. It's not paper level or even process level implementation. Rather, it's performance level implementation. Making it happen means that an organization and its leadership have developed intentional systems with dedicated people to work on the activities of implementation. At this level, we measure the quality of service delivery and fidelity. We provide staff with ongoing coaching, support, and feedback. We create feedback loops between staff and leaders to remove barriers and encourage process improvement and innovation. At this level, the program becomes deeply integrated into the culture and habits, and part of that infinite cycle of pursuing excellence. It's when we hire and promote staff to align with the new program, and our data systems are wrapped around the new program. Basically speaking, it's when our people, our data, our leadership, and our culture are hospitable to and highly supportive of the new program or innovation. Implementation is a process with a specific set of activities that can take at least 2 to 5 years to achieve full integration. Large-scale implementation in large organizations may take even longer. Knowing this can help organizations and people focus high-impact strategies that will show outcomes over time. So, we just established and mentioned that making it happen is when our people, our data, our leadership, and our culture are hospitable to and highly supportive of the new program or the innovation. It's not a coincidence that those are our 4 pillars of implementation acumen: people, data, leadership, and culture. Let's start to talk about each one of these pillars at a high level and in some detail. The people pillar requires us to think, to what degree are the right people working on the project? To what degree do staff have the necessary skills, support, and resources to do their best quality work? Even things like asking about the degree to which our leadership and management have developed over time to support the new changes is important here. The data pillar is about our data and data systems, and the degree to which those are used to provide feedback and improve the quality of services of our products and our programs. It's about fidelity data, staff development data, outcome data, and other important metrics that help to paint a picture of our implementation potency. The culture pillar is a big one. It requires us to step away and ask ourselves, to what degree is our organizational culture hospitable to the innovation itself, and to change in general, and to effective implementation strategies? Our culture has to be change-friendly, EBP-friendly, and implementation science-friendly in order for the program to have a place to live and thrive. Without that, we cannot reach performance-level implementation. And finally, why you're here today, the leadership pillar. The leadership pillar requires us to think about the degree to which we're leading change with effective leadership principles and practices in place. These are the 10 essential principles of implementation leadership. The principles are the pillar, and the pillar is the principles and practices. We have an 8-week virtual implementation leadership academy that goes over these principles in detail. So if you're interested in learning more about the 10 essential principles of implementation leadership, Just ask one of the ACGI team members for more information. People, data, culture, leadership. Those are our 4 pillars. Let's go over them in more detail and start to translate these into tangible best practices. The people pillar. This starts with how we hire, promote, and onboard people to align with a new program or EBP. When we hire new staff or promote new leaders or reassign people, are we doing it with intention around the EBP? Look at things like your interview questions and the makeup of interview panels even, how you score or rank your job applicants. The job descriptions and even job titles signal opportunities for change in this area. When we choose people to come into our organization, we should be looking for underlying beliefs, mindset, attitudes, and abilities to have the complex skills of doing the EBP with high quality. We promote people who are open to change and innovation, and who support the best practices of our field. We intentionally hire and promote people based on our desired culture and our concept of organizational excellence. We also must provide high-quality classroom training as part of this pillar, but that's never enough in and of itself. We also have to have habits where staff can rehearse the new skills inside and outside of the classroom environment. Just like learning a new language or learning a musical instrument or even learning new technology, we have to rehearse and practice new skills over and over and over again in order to get better. Classroom training only gives us knowledge. It doesn't give us new skills. New skills come when we repeat them over and over and over again, and when we get immediate feedback from coaches and trainers from our implementation team. Remember what it was like to learn a virtual meeting platform for the first time? The training we got only got us so far. It wasn't until we tried and even failed that we started learning the actual skills to use things like Google Classroom or WebEx or Zoom or GoToMeeting or Microsoft Teams. EBPs are the same. The people pillar also requires us to get beyond training into the space of performance coaching. We get away from the curriculum and into the place where we observe staff doing the new skills and provide them with intentional coaching so that they incrementally get more skilled over time. We sit beside them in real and fictitious settings and provide them support and challenging coaching feedback. And while we do this, we also must start building our bench by training and coaching emerging leaders to lead change in healthy ways. We build our future leaders now by sharing implementation leadership with them and helping them to be better at their jobs than we were at ours. And the people pillar requires us to use intentional and diverse implementation teams as part of our science-based strategies. The use of implementation teams is an important part of this pillar that requires some extra attention. The National Implementation Research Network and the implementation science community in general knows that implementation teams can have a powerful effect on overall success. Implementation teams are a vehicle to outlast any one initiative and can help an organization to create an infrastructure to implement any new idea on purpose with a focus on results. Implementation teams leverage ideas, expertise, and multiple perspectives to distribute the work of implementation across an organization, not just landing squarely on the leader or the staff. Using a well-designed implementation team can assure that your results come sooner and last longer. Research has demonstrated that without an implementation team approach, it could take as much as 17 years to impact outcomes, and only 14% of the sites in this research did so. Yet with implementation teams, 8 out of 10 sites can reach sustained change and in much less time, perhaps as little as 3 years to reach full sustained success. Using implementation teams is making it happen. Not using them is maybe only hoping it happens. So let's talk about what a good implementation team looks like. When we design roles for our team, we should be intentional about bringing people to the table with different areas of expertise and knowledge. Say we have a team of 5 to 7 people. We would approach our team like this. 1. We need people who are versed in the EBP or the program itself. 1 or 2 who is assigned to really learn, teach, and model the EBP. 2. Your team should have people who have learned the 4 pillars of implementation and know implementation science. Preferably, everyone in the team learns the 4 pillars. 3. The team has data and analytic people who have the skills and knowledge to design measurement processes, which we'll talk about next. 4. You also need a role for the team builder, one who is a relational person who can help with the team cohesion and harmony. That person who people go to for team building and resolving conflict in healthy ways. 5. A person who can influence a healthy culture for the team, who represents the ideal culture that we're aiming for. This person is the one who understands the organizational culture and how to measure it. And 6. We need a healthy skeptic on the team, that person who thinks critically and who can help us foresee future problems that we may not be able to see. Ideally, your team is comprised of diverse minds who think both logically and creatively. A team who is as imaginative as they are practical. A team who can focus on data and statistics, and one who can focus on harmony and relationships. All these important roles don't live in a single person or a small team. It usually takes a team of 5 to 7 people to have these diverse strengths, skills, and roles. The data pillar. The data pillar involves designing data collection, analysis, and reporting wrapped around the program and its implementation. First, the data pillar requires us to use training and coaching data to incrementally measure our status with effective implementation. Here's where we gauge our success with process measures to get a signal about the scale of our efforts. Measuring how people respond to training and coaching, and how their skills develop over time in incremental ways is key here. Second, we also develop or use pre-existing fidelity measurement tools. It's not enough to talk about fidelity. Unless we measure it, it means nothing. Here, we use structured tools and processes to incrementally measure fidelity to the EBP and to good implementation. This is where time, density, and quality become something abstract to something concrete. Our data systems measure time. How long is the program exposed to clients, for example? We measure density, the scale of the program to clients or staff. And then we measure quality. Is the program loyal to its original design? Is the training and coaching meeting our standards for quality? Are we seeing tangible and concrete gains in skill development of staff over time? All these are best practices with the data pillar. The data pillar also requires us to build and then improve data collection systems so that we can do all of this. The organizational change is so important here that we see the change live in our data systems and not just our paper products. We are serious enough about the EBP that we design our data systems in a way that we capture short and long-term metrics about the implementation initiative.
In the Implementation Leadership Academy, one of the tools we introduce is a simple pillars assessment. The data pillar is also where we use tools to gauge our overall performance as an organization across the 4 pillars.
Before we get into the next 2 pillars, let's stop and think for a minute. Here is where we focus on ourselves and our own role in the implementation. While the people and data pillars lean towards what other people may do, these next 2 pillars are more about us and our organization itself. Simon Sinek said, "Leadership requires a vision of the world that does not yet exist and the ability to communicate it." This compels us to think about how we lead change and our culture. We have to use a mirror now and look at the way we communicate change and our vision for organizational excellence. We have to look at the vocabulary and the language we use while implementing. The 10 essential principles of implementation leadership is that language. The 10 principles are a new vocabulary from which to lead change, starting with ourselves as leaders. As we shift the view to ourselves, let's start with the culture pillar. This is a lens into the collective mindset of our organization. That's its personality, its habits, its values, its boundaries, and even its feel. First, we use formal structured tools to identify and diagnose our current culture. We need to know what we're working with objectively, and we have the tool to show you how to do that. Yet, that's not enough. We also have to design a target for our culture, which is our desired culture that's hospitable to change.
The same tool will allow you to formally measure your current and desired culture of your organization. Eventually, when we get into culture change, we have to use the right tools for that job too. ACJI has some formal tools for culture change that we can show you sometime. The culture pillar also means that we use formal tools to find alternatives to our current culture, as well as opportunities to work on for our desired culture. If we want to change the organizational culture, values, beliefs, and habits, we have to use tools to start that work. Perhaps the most important tool for culture change is dialogue. Healthy dialogue is a key ingredient of the culture pillar. A best practice is overt, ongoing, and candid dialogue in our hallways, water cooler talk, coaching sessions, meetings, and hiring about our current and desired culture. This is also when we reinforce our desired culture with a change in our dialogue and vocabulary day to day. For example, step back and think for a minute about your current culture. Imagine the words risk, failure, and trial and error. Are those words hospitable terms in your culture or forbidden ones? Are those words threatening or inviting? In the Virtual Implementation Leadership Academy, you'll learn how to use this vocabulary so that risk, failure, trial, and error are healthy terms that create a space for people to grow and learn and adopt new habits. As we say in implementation leadership, we must be comfortable being uncomfortable. Finally, the leadership pillar. When it all comes down to it, the 10 essential principles are the leadership pillar, and vice versa. We will be discussing some of these principles in your retreat, but for now, you can learn more about these principles at our website at www.acji.org. People, data, culture, leadership. Those are our 4 pillars. We look forward to engaging in this material with you and providing you with the tools and strategies that will infuse the science of implementation into your work.